They say every house has a story. Some are tales of warmth and laughter, while others are stories of darkness, best left undisturbed. The story of the house on Elm Street was one of those, silent, forgotten, and unsettlingly real. It was late autumn when Sarah and her family moved into the old Victorian house on Elm Street. To an outsider, the place had charm, tall windows, intricate woodwork, and an air of timelessness. But for Sarah, something didn't feel quite right. Neighbors whispered about strange occurrences, about the house being unlucky. She brushed it off as superstition, but a part of her felt uneasy. From the very first night, the house seemed to come alive in unsettling ways. As Sarah tried to sleep, she noticed an odd silence, heavy and dense. Around 3 a.m., she was jolted awake by a faint sound coming from above. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps. They echoed from the attic, pacing back and forth, back and forth. She lay there, frozen, listening to each creak in the floorboards. Her husband, Mark, reassured her, saying it was probably an animal or the house settling. But it didn't stop. Every night, like clockwork, the footsteps started again. And each morning the attic door, locked the night before, was always slightly open. Sarah's curiosity grew, but a part of her didn't want to know what was behind that door. There was a sense of dread that kept her away. One evening, Sarah was alone, cleaning up in the kitchen. As she glanced out the window, she noticed something, a faint reflection of the hallway behind her. She froze. Standing at the top of the staircase was a figure. An old woman, her face pale, eyes hollow. She wore an old-fashioned dress, like something out of a photograph from another era. The woman looked right at Sarah, unmoving, as if waiting, watching. Sarah spun around, her heart pounding, but the hallway was empty. She tried to tell herself it was her imagination, a trick of the light. But deep down, she knew that what she saw was real. After that night, things only got worse. Sarah began seeing glimpses of the old woman in mirrors, in windows, even in her bedroom. Each time, it was as if the woman was trying to reach out, her gaze empty yet filled with something haunting, a deep sadness, maybe even longing. One night, when Sarah was alone, she felt compelled to go to the attic. The footsteps had stopped, but there was a whisper, faint, almost inaudible, calling her name. She followed the sound up the creaky staircase to the attic, where she found an old dusty trunk. Inside the trunk were faded letters, brittle photographs, and a leather-bound journal. The journal belonged to Edith, the former owner of the house. As Sarah flipped through the pages, she discovered Edith's story, a tale of loneliness and heartbreak. Edith had been abandoned by her family and had died here, alone and forgotten. As Sarah read the final words, she felt a chill. The air grew thick, and she sensed a presence behind her. Slowly, she turned around, and there was Edith's apparition, looking as sorrowful as ever. Her empty eyes locked onto Sarah's, and for a moment, it was as if she was silently pleading. With a trembling voice, Sarah whispered, "I'm sorry." She closed the journal and left the attic, feeling an odd sense of relief. From that day forward, the house was quiet. The footsteps stopped, the sightings ended, and it felt as if the spirit had finally found peace. The house on Elm Street stands silent now, its story at rest. But those who dare to look too closely might still sense Edith's lingering presence, a reminder that some stories once told are forever bound to the walls in which they happened.